So Starfield has finally arrived, and I've already sunk an irresponsible amount of hours into it. Like, way too much. I miss my family. My horrifying existential crisis aside, I'm actually really surprised on how much I'm enjoying the game. One thing I did not expect was a return of more RPG mechanics. Even though these games have always been RPGs, it seems like with each new game, we lose more and more RPG mechanics. One mechanic I never expected to return were traits. For those that don't know, traits were last featured in Fallout New Vegas all the way back in 2010. Now 13 years is a long time. Some of my viewers weren't even born back then. What I'm saying is, some people might not know how traits work, or really even what they are. That's why I took it upon myself to go over every single Starfield trait. So the way traits work in Starfield are pretty simple. Traits are optional perks you can select in the character creation stage, and they usually have a positive and negative associated with them. You can choose up to 3 traits, but they're all optional and you can play without traits if you want to. Lastly, if you pick a trait and end up not liking it, you can always get them removed later on. Alright, now that we know what traits are, let's take a closer look at them. The first trait we have here is Alien DNA. Alien DNA starts you off with increased health and stamina, but, in return, food and healing items aren't as effective. This might seem like a bad thing, but the pros really outweigh the cons here. Now yes, it is unfortunate that healing items are less effective, but as long as you level up your medicine skill, the difference really isn't that bad. Having more health and stamina is something you just can't turn down in Starfield, so I'd recommend picking up Alien DNA. The next trait, Dream House, gives you your own luxurious house that you can customize to your liking. The downside, it comes with a 125,000 credit mortgage that has to be paid weekly. Now if there's one thing I hate, it's owing thousands to a giant corporate bank that has the ability to ruin my life. Thank God that can't happen in real life though. Despite my hatred for this depressing business model, Dream House is actually a really good trait to have. The house you get is absolutely huge and you really can customize almost all of it. 125,000 really isn't that much either. If you know what you're doing, you can make that pretty easily. Even if you can't afford it, you can do a weekly payment of 500 credits a week. 500 credits is nothing, so if you can't afford that, get a job or something, I don't know. All in all, Dream Home is a really fun and interesting trait that's worth picking up. The Empath trait is all about companions. Performing actions your companion likes will result in a temporary increase in combat effectiveness, but performing actions they don't like will have the precise opposite effect. The value of this perk ultimately comes down to your playstyle. This trait is useless to you if you're going for a lone wolf playthrough, or you just want to be a dick to your crew, which hey, you do you. But if you're trying to avoid any HR complaints, this trait is alright. Even if you go around pissing off all your crew, the debuff is temporary. Empath isn't a bad trait, but there are a lot better ones available. Our next pair of traits are Introvert and Extrovert. These are 2 different traits, but they act in a very similar manner and are exclusive from one another. Extrovert makes it to where actions that require oxygen, like sprinting or jumping, require less of it when traveling with a companion. As you can probably guess, Introvert is the exact opposite. Much like Empath, the usefulness of this perk really comes down to your playstyle. If you don't plan on taking any companions along your journey, you might as well pick up Introvert. If you plan on picking up everyone you can, go with Extrovert. I will say there are some really cool companions in Starfield, so maybe hold off on writing them off just yet. Starfield has 3 traits that are related to the different factions in the game. These traits are Neon City Street Kid, Freestar Collective Settler, and United Colonies Native. These traits unlock unique dialogue and better rewards from their respective factions, but in turn, crime bounties towards other factions are more harsh. Now all 3 of these perks are good and bad in their own ways, so your choice will mostly be based around role-playing. If you prefer highly structured government with lots of power, go for the UC Native. If you want to be a libertarian cowboy that no one can tell what to do, go Freestar Collective Settler. Want to do drugs and sleep in a dirty alley? Neon City Street Rat. Now one of these obviously sounds cooler than the others, but you can't go wrong either way. Hero Worship is one of the more interesting perks in the game. The pros? You get a free companion that will travel with you, constantly praise you, and occasionally give you a gift. The cons? He's annoying as f***.
Hey, do you mind if I follow you around? Do you need a sidekick?
Yes, for those unaware, this whole trait is a loving callback to the adoring fan from Oblivion. Same voice actor, same name, and even 17 years later, he's still an annoying p***. You need this trait. It is a prerequisite for playing Starfield. Starfield is a game where the only limit is your imagination. You can do stuff that could only be possible in a video game, like fly a spaceship, battle alien creatures, or have 2 loving parents. The trait kid stuff means your parents were alive and well, and you can visit them anytime. The only downside is you have to send 2% of your weekly income back home to them. But hey, it's only 2%, okay? These people raised you. Show some damn respect. This is another trait I'd highly recommend. If parental love isn't up your alley, how about love from a power higher up? Never ask a man his salary, his political affiliation, and which religion he chose in Starfield. There are 2 joinable religions in the game, the Sanctum Universum and the Enlightened. Now look, it's not my place to tell you which of these fine establishments to join. Whichever one you decide upon, you gain access to a chest full of loot at said organization's headquarters. From what I've seen, the loot isn't much different between the 2, so you can't go wrong either way. That being said, there are much better traits to choose from. Alright, so do you remember how I just said there are 2 joinable religions in the game? Yeah, well, I lied. There's actually a 3rd religion-based trait you can get, and it's so much better than these other 2. Serpants Embrace doesn't just give you a boring chest you can loot. Oh no. This trait increases your health and oxygen every time you grav jump, but decreases them when you go too long without grav jumping. This trait is really good because you're constantly jumping from system to system, so you basically get a free stat boost for nothing. Out of all the religion traits, this is definitely the best one to take. I'd rather have a unique perk over some basic loot any day. Oh, and I guess you should know that they're technically a cult, a shady one at that worship a giant space serpent entity that is their savior. But I mean, the perk is pretty cool, so you win some, you lose some. The next 2 traits here are Spaced and Terra Firma. Spaced gives you increased health and oxygen while in space, yet decreased while on land. As you can imagine, Terra Firma does the exact opposite. Now once again, the viability of these traits will depend on your playstyle. If you plan on staying on the ground and exploring the multitude of planets Starfield has to offer, go with Terra Firma. If you plan on exploring space and boarding ships and space stations, Spaced will suit you better. As a whole, I'd say Terra Firma is probably the better of the 2. If you're up in space, chances are you'll probably be flying your ship, so these stat boosts are pretty much worthless. Yeah, shipboarding and space stations get affected too, but you won't be doing that too much. When it comes to the ground, however, you'll be doing much more combat and sprinting down there. But, like I said, it all depends on your playstyle. Our next trait is Taskmaster. The deep expanse of space is full of perilous dangers in Starfield, so if you want to survive, you need a solid crew. With Taskmaster, occasionally, if you have a crew trained in a certain ship system, that system will automatically repair itself to full health whenever it's damaged below 50%. However, all crew cost twice as much to hire. If you plan on running a large ship, this perk is really useful. Ship combat can easily get overwhelming when facing multiple enemies. If you're not watching your ship's health carefully, you'll die. So, Taskmaster is actually a really good trait to have. The description says it only happens occasionally, but in the short time I've used it, it happens all the time. Yeah, it does kind of suck that your crew costs 50% more, but like I said earlier, money in this game is pretty much a non-issue. This will save your ass when you really need it, so it's definitely worth looking into. The final Starfield trait we have is Wanted. Someone put a price on your head, and word is spread. Occasionally, armed mercenaries will show up and try to kill you, but being cornered gives you an edge. When your health is low, you do extra damage. This trait on a technical level, it's just alright. I've never been a fan of perks that give you stat bonus whenever your health drops low, in any game, and Starfield's no different. They can be good if you're in a sticky situation, but I like to keep up on my health during combat. That being said, this trait is really good for making money. The bounty hunters that come after you aren't especially tough, but they usually have decent loot to sell. You can easily cheese this for near unlimited credits, if that's what you're into. This trait is also great for role-playing purposes too. If you're going for a space pirate criminal build, this is a must-have. Alright, so which traits are you guys going to use in Starfield? Me personally, I'm rocking Neon City Street Rat, Hero Worshipped, and Wanted. Whichever one you guys are using, let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, liking and subscribing really helps the channel out a lot. I plan on making a lot more Starfield videos in the future, so let me know what you guys want to see. But don't worry, Fallout's not going anywhere either. I think that's all for me. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.